Hey, good morning or afternoon, everyone. This is Mark Hamlin here, and today I'm going to take you through our Product Configurator product, which has been around for quite a few years now, but there's some new goodies in the last since the last release a couple of years ago. Well, actually, the last release was 6 months ago, but anyway, we've got some nice new goodies to talk about, and if you're new to it, it'll give you a good understanding of what it can do, how to set it up, and those sorts of things. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through, just very briefly talk about us, then go through and really look at the software. That's the bulk of the session today, and then talk about a little bit about how you license it, how it's priced, and things like that. So a little bit about it before we jump in and look at it. One of the key points here is it's built right into Business Central. So it's not a separate interface you have to go into, separate page or in a web browser or anything like that. It's right in Business Central. And then the follow-up question is usually, well, can I use this in my e-commerce site and things like that? So we have had people integrate it with some of the e-commerce sites and things like that out there. If you have questions about it, let us know. We also have an API. If you have a custom site, an API available for the Product Configurator to use it with, an e-commerce site. But the default is we don't have a web user interface for it out of the box. It works within Business Central. And that makes it very simple to set up and use. So configurators are hard, right? They just are. Anytime you move from, maybe you've got an Excel spreadsheet you've been using for 10 years. Well, you've probably got hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of effort to get that Excel spreadsheet to work the way you want. Moving that into anything else can be difficult. Luckily, our configurator makes it quite easy to do the setup, to get it ready to work, and to do that conversion. So out of all the configurators you might find out there, ours is one of the easiest, or probably the easiest, to set up and get going. One of the things here is also with configurators, we don't want to create new items if you're just quoting. If you're doing 1,000 quotes a month and, you're only closing 10 of those, you don't want to create 1,000 item numbers a month. So we can use quoting items and things like that. And when we do generate new item numbers, we can do smart number generation, so we can generate the item number based on the configuration that you've created. And then we can also create assembly BOMs or production BOMs. So we work either with assembly or production. And when we're doing production, we can create the routings as well. On the assembly BOMs, we can add labor through resources, but we can work with both the advanced manufacturing and sort of the light manufacturing with assembly. For more advanced things, we do have a rule builder, and I mentioned the API earlier, but we have a rule builder available. So if you need to create complex rules and calculations and all sorts of things like that, we have those capabilities as well. The last one there is from a licensing perspective, and we'll cover that off a little bit later as well. But if you have people that are doing, sitting in an order entry desk or something like that, and creating quotes, that can be a team member. So you can use a configurator with a team member license to create those quotes and create those configurations. All right, so a little high-level background on it. What we want to do, though, of course, is actually look at how it's going to work in real life. So let's open up Business Central here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to, you can do this from a quote or a sales order. I'm going to start with a sales order rather than a quote, but same thing, works exactly the same whether it's a quote or a sales order. Now I'm going to come in here and we're just going to create a brand new sales order. And let's wait for Business Central to wake up here, and we'll just use one of my favorite companies here, Deerfield. And now we're going to come in and we're going to actually configure an item to sell. And the way we do that is simply come in and say, go into the BOM designer. So there's a few things that you can see here. The BOM designer lets us configure one product at a time. And Bulk Configurator allows us to sort of use a spreadsheet view to configure multiple products at a time. I'm going to create a new product. And what we're going to do is we're going to, build, somebody's doing their home office stuff. So I'm going to come in here. And the first thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need, a desk, right? Let's say I need to build out a desk. So I come in here, and this item category, these are the types of items that we're selling. Okay, so if you're IKEA, and if I'm looking for desk, I might have 10 different styles of desk that I might want to sell and configure. So I'll have that list here. So these are the various items that I'm, able to build. And if you're talking about, you go on an automotive site and they have a configurator for building a car, right? They'll have all the different car models. Well, that's what would be listed here, each different car model or something like that. So in this case, I only have one desk to configure, but I might have 3 different styles of desks or 10 different styles of desks. When I choose that, what it does is it brings up, a view, and you get to configure all the options that we have for this type of desk. And these guys on here, they're bold and they're red if I haven't made a selection, because these are mandatory and these guys here are options. And it's pretty simple. I come in here, there's, we default into 6 feet, but maybe I want a 7-foot desk. And then I want, actually I'll go back here. Maybe I want birch finish. And then as far as options goes, let's do a wooden door. I'll do 3 wooden doors I want on this thing. I won't bother with shelves. And I am going to, put some trim on there. And you'll notice as soon as I selected trim, this quantity of 19 came in here automatically. Well, that's a calculated value. That comes from the calculation based on the length I've specified here. So if I say I want an 8-foot, it's going to come in here and automatically do that calculation for the amount of trim I need, right? And then the legs, I'm not going to bother specifying anything else for. Now, in here, I've got another rule that says, hey, if my desk is 10 feet or longer, what it's going to do is it's going to enforce the shelving. And in this case, it doesn't, yell at me or prompt me or anything else, which I'll show you we can do. But it said, hey, if it's 10 feet or longer, you're going to need these shelves. We're just going to enforce that, and you can't change that at all. Okay. Now, so I'm going to build up my desk. Let's say it's going to be 11.5 feet long. That's a pretty big desk. It's calculated everything out for me. It's got my cost here. This includes any labor, anything like that's included in it, and what I'm planning on selling it for. And this is, a bit of an issue because I'm selling it for a lot less than it's costing me to build it. At any rate, this is all configurable, the pricing and everything like that you set up here. That's completely configurable by you, and it's handled in the configurator, or it uses the pricing on the items of the individual components. You'll notice here things like this birch, that's not actually a component. That's not an item number within Business Central. Same thing with the trim. That's not an item number that we're selecting. That's just a value that will drive components on this particular bill of material. All right, so anyway, I'm going to choose this guy. We build out my desk, and there it is. Now, the thing I'll mention here, this item number that it's using, that's a quoting item, we call it. And what that means is it's a standard item number for this type of product. It's not a new item number. It hasn't created a new one. It's using a standard item number with a custom configuration, custom bill of materials for that specific item. And the value in that is, again, we're not building a new item number every time we do a new configuration. Typically, this is used with quotes. And in a quote, I'll list all of these things with the same item number. I might have a different desk here that's 8 feet or something like that, a whole bunch of these on it. They'll have the same item number. And when I convert that quote to an order, at that point, we can decide if we want to convert it to an actual item number that just works like any other item within Business Central. Okay, so that's the quoting item concept. Now, I've got my desk. Next thing I need is, I'm going to want, a computer to put on that desk. So luckily, I also sell those things. And same thing here, like if you go to the Dell website or whatever, they'll list a whole bunch of different laptop lines and, desktop lines and things like that. Those will be listed here. I only got one computer that I can configure. So I'm going to choose it. And this is about the simplest you can set up, the configurator. It's very plain Jane. It's got no, headings or anything like that. But it allows me to come in and choose, what I need for each of these options on this particular type of computer. Now, this is using all the old Business Central data, so it's pretty ancient. It's actually the old nav data even. That's how far it goes back. So, we don't exactly have high-powered computers here. But I'm going to choose my highest-powered computer in here. And by the way, I will mention, it does tell us what we have available on hand for those individual components to help you with that decision. And if you go to select from full list, you can do some more things from here as well to figure out, which component you may want to use. Anyway, I'm going to come in here. We're going to, max out the RAM here. We're going to, find a nice big hard drive that we have stock of. And then the monitor, well, maybe I don't have the monitor listed here that the customer wants. Like maybe, we say, oh, you can get a 24-inch, they want something larger. Well, another thing you can do, even if you haven't said, hey, these are, you don't want to list every single monitor you could potentially sell with this product. There might be hundreds or thousands of monitors that you could potentially supply, but you don't stock, and they're not your standard thing. What I can do is I can set it up to do the select from additional choices. And what that allows me to do, in this case, I'm going to the catalog items. This could also go to the standard item list. But now I can get a list of all the monitors and things like that are available from my manufacturers or vendors, and choose one that I want to use instead of, the standard ones that I have listed in the thing. So maybe I want a 28-inch monitor instead. I could choose that. It'll create that item for me from the non-stock list, from the catalog items list, and away I go. Okay, so you can list sort of your standards here and then go and choose alternates if you need to, or just put in some text to say, type in what you want and those sorts of things. Now down here on the keyboard and the mouse, right, I've got, this quiet key keyboard, or I've got the performance keyboard option. And then when I go down to the mouse, I've got these three options: basic, advanced, and Microsoft, and I can choose whatever I like. If, however, I choose the performance keyboard and come down here, you'll notice that basic mouse option disappears. So you can set up rules like that to prevent people from selecting items that aren't compatible with one another. So the choice combinations, where we can say, hey, if I choose this item here, there's certain items or options that I can no longer select for that. Okay, so anyway, this one's pretty simple. I'm choosing individual components in this, and when I'm done, I'm going to hit OK. And this particular one is not a production order. This one actually generates an assembly order. So this is an assembled item. So this is also set up as an assembly to order. So it automatically created my assembly order for me. And if I open this up, not really rocket science here. All the components I selected are there. And in addition, we added some labor through the configurator to, actually put this thing together. So again, we can add labor into assembly orders via resources, and we can add labor into production orders through operations or additional routings, right? So if I choose, we'll see it when we get to the production side. Okay, so that one was an assembled item. And now, I've got, my new desk here and my PC, and I'm going to spend all day working on this, but I need exercise as well. So, I don't want to sit at the desk all day. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to buy a mountain bike, and we happen to sell those as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come in here, and again, you might have 10 different types of mountain bike or whatever to configure. I'm just going to choose this one here to configure, and it's going to open up and give me all the options I can select for this type of bike. And you'll notice these guys are sort of bold and red because they're mandatory. I haven't made a selection, so they're red. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll choose, my options. So this time I'm going to have a red frame for this, and I'm going to choose the standard handlebars, okay, for this. And as soon as I do that, it says, hey, well, if you do the standard handlebars, you're going to need a belt. And when I hit OK here, you'll notice it's enforced that bell requirement here, and it's set this quantity of 2. Well, that's again a calculation, not that it's all that realistic, but for the number of handlebars I have, it's just I get two bells per handlebar that I buy. If I chose the other handlebars, what it does is it now prompts me and says, hey, you know what? You should really get a light with this because it's cool. But you'll notice there's no light option here. And that's because when I choose a standard, I wasn't allowed to choose a light whatsoever. Okay, so in this case, I chose a different handlebars. I get 2 bells. Maybe I only want one bell here. And now I'm allowed to change that quantity on that bell because I have a different set of handlebars, right? So 1 bell, 1 light. And now the mud guards down here, I'm going to choose front and back mud guards while I'm in the options set. And you'll notice this isn't a component. I don't have an item called front and back. But when I choose that, it's going to incorporate the actual components I need for both front mud guards and back mud guards automatically. Okay. Now let's go back and finish up the rest of this because I can't end it with this because these are all, sort of red and italicized because I need it. So I'm just going to come in and choose all the options I want for, the rest of these things, and we're good. So now we've got our bike, we've got our cost, our price, everything looks good. It's also built us a picture of that particular configuration that we've made, right? With, the different handlebars, different color, like if it changes to purple, it's going to update the image. So you can set that up as well. You can build up images. Those get stored with the item or with a quote if you're using quoting items. So if you wanted to modify the quote report to print, images of what you've configured on there, you can do all that kind of stuff as well. Anyway, here's my bike that I've configured. Again, I just hit OK. It adds it in to the sales order. And I will mention a couple of things here. I didn't mention it here, but these item numbers that it's generating. So these guys are set up to actually create a new item number for each new configuration that I create. If I went in and configured something that I'd done before, it would find that previous configuration. So if I've already configured something and I do it again for some later quote or order, it's going to reuse the same item number it had before. So it's not going to create a new item every configuration. It's only every unique configuration. And in my case, what I'm doing is, I've got a base number series here, the IWBK, and I'm just incrementing, the last part of it through a number series. So that's one way of generating the item numbers. The other way is with the smart item number capability, where I could have built up an item number based on the choices I've made here, right? Including constants, dashes, whatever you want. So you can use the smart item number capability with Configurator to build up item numbers that have some meaning for you. Now, just for fun, let's actually go back in here. And I'm going to go back into the BOM designer for this line. So it brings up the configuration for that particular sales line. I could see everything I've done. If I want to change it here, I can make changes and it'll update the sales order and everything else. But what I wanted to do is just come in here and let's have a look at the item card for this particular item that was created. We'll look at a couple of things here. So again, it created this description is, you define how that description gets created, those sorts of things. And down here, and I should mention all the defaults here, those are based on settings you make. So you create a template for this type of item, then it will set the posting, the stuff and replenishment, whatever you've got it set to, it'll come in and set all those defaults. So it creates that item automatically. It's all built exactly the way you want. And I've also set it up to generate these item attributes. So in addition to, marketing text and, the extended text, the marketing text, and, images and things like that and description, it'll also add in these item attributes, if you like, that you can then, they're just standard Business Central item attributes you can search on, all that kind of stuff. And also, the Copilot, marketing text generation here uses these attributes to generate actually a pretty useful set of marketing text, right? So, it talks about the lights and the mud guards and all of that kind of fun stuff, and it's getting that from the item attributes. So you can do all sorts of fancy stuff with that once that item is created. So now I've got everything I can use to publish this thing or quote it or whatever I need to do. So that's the basics, right? Pretty simple. All we do, actually, I lied. I'm not done yet. What I want to do is show you the bill of materials that actually generated for that item. So from the item card, I could have gone there, but I can also get to it right from here. This item structure, this is the bill of materials that I built for this particular mountain bike based on my selections. And you can see it's a pretty significant bill of materials, but all I had to do is make, 5 or 6 different choices, and it's gone out and built this all for me, and it's included all my options. So like here's the front and back mud guards, the LED, the blue LED light, all that kind of stuff comes in automatically, right? So it's built up a pretty significant bill of materials without any effort from the people doing the order entry. And if you have our enhanced planning pack, you can look at it nice and visually and see if you can actually build these things. Like red means it's not available, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's the enhanced planning pack multi-level viewer. But again, all I did, I filled in a few of these things. It prompted me to upsell. It enforced some rules that said I need bells if I choose certain components. Then I've got my item on the sales order that then I could go ahead and sell or quote or whatever I want to do. Now, once these are created, these are standard items. So we get questions, well, how does it work with MRP and planning and scheduling and all that? It works exactly the same as any other item in Business Central. I can now go run the planning worksheet. This will show up as being required. all the components on them, on that will show up for MRP, all of those sorts of things. It's all now just part of standard Business Central. There's nothing else I have to do. If you're using quoting items, the only thing you have to do extra is create a production order for that quoting item. Or if it's an assembler order, you can just set the assembler order here. So if you're using quoting items, you have one extra step to create that production order. But after that, it's a standard production order. MRP works. Everything works exactly the same as standard Business Central. So once I've gone through and done my BOM designer there, we're good to go. We can go ahead and use Business Central the way it works inherently with everything else, and it works exactly the same way. So that's basically how it works, right? Come in, a few quick clicks, and I've got my order ready to quote it or ship it or whatever I need to do. Now, a couple of extra things on here. The bulk configurator that I talked about earlier, this allows us, if you're selling multiple desks, I can come in and say, okay, they wanted one of that 11.5 foot. I'm going to also do one that's got, some glass doors. And then I'm going to do, another one. They want 1 6-foot maple with no extra goodies. So you can actually build it up here in a more sort of spreadsheet view if you're, selling multiple versions of that item at a time. And then I can go into each one individually and get the details. But what this does is allows us to, quickly build up a list of those things. And again, it just adds it into the sales order. And these comments here, this is the extended text. You have full control over what this text looks like, what shows up on the orders. You control all of that through the configuration. Okay? Now, the last thing I'm going to show you, technically not released yet. We've been showing it off for a little while, but it's kind of cool to look at. So I'll show you as well. Let's say you're, sitting here at the sales order desk, and somebody phones up or sends you an email, and they've got a description of what they want. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this design with AI thing. And I'm just going to, talk to it and tell it what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch the Windows stuff here. I want a red mountain bike with a blue light. Okay, so what it's doing there is it's taking what I asked for, red mountain bike, blue light. Okay, so I didn't mention all this other stuff that I wanted, but if I had, it would have built that in, and I can finish this off. A better example might be a desk, right? So let's go in and just describe a desk that I might want. So we'll just come in here, choose a blank line. I want a 7-foot maple desk with steel legs and trim and 3 wooden doors. Okay, so the idea behind this, again, if you have a website where people can enter that information like they're searching for a product, and it can build it up for you and give you the price and the cost. Again, we got to do some cost cutting on this guy, but give you the price and everything and just suck that in. That's pretty cool. Or like I said, you get an email from somebody, you copy and paste, the description of what they're looking for, or you use a new AI sales agent with Microsoft, and it can automatically build up your configuration and give you a price. That's pretty cool. So anyway, that design with AI stuff, once the full capability where Microsoft is covering the cost of all the AI stuff, this will be available, and you'll be able to use that design with AI to quickly describe what you want, and it'll build it for you. Pretty cool. All right. Now, that's the basics. That's how we build up, a sales order or a sales quote. How did we get to that point? How do we configure it to the point where we can actually, start doing that from a sales order or a sales quote? And as I said, it's pretty simple to get that set up. But the way it works is we're going to go into the configurator item categories. That's where everything starts, right? So again, this is sort of your product line. If you have a website that lists, 3 different sections, and in each section you have several different products in it, those are the products that are really going to be listed here, right? So, you'll have different types of things you can do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the mountain bike. That's the most sort of comprehensive example here. And what it does, this screen here gives you a few things, like whether you're going to use a quoting item or a regular item, whether it's, production or assembly orders, what your base routing looks like, how you set up the descriptions and all those sorts of things, all of that kind of stuff you can set up here. This, by the way, where we link it to the sales line field, that's if you're dealing with, drawing. Somebody's got a bunch of drawing marks or something. You might have a custom field you want to update from the configurator. You can do that. And again, you can set up the smart item numbers where you can go in and define how you want that item number built up based on the choices I've made, or constants or number series, things like that. So it's a pretty comprehensive tool there to build up your item numbers. Anyway, this is very basic. On the data template I mentioned earlier, where you can go in and set up kind of how you want that item generated. So every time I generate this type of item, it's going to set all these defaults on that item card for me, right? So that's how you really automate the creation of those items. But where the magic happens is really under these options here. And the options are exactly what you'd expect. It's where I list all the options for this particular product, and for each option, I will have specific components that I can select, or specific choices I can select for that option. And those choices can be, items, which is, pretty simple. I'm choosing a specific component I want for that. Or it can be a production BOM where I'm, selecting multiple items with a single choice. Or a resource, and this is where we can do labor and things like that on assembly orders. Or operation, which is labor on routings if we're using production orders. And in a lot of cases, things like production BOM, resource, operation aren't directly selectable. What you do is you say, hey, if I choose this type of component, that means I'm going to need additional labor, and that labor will automatically come in based on the component I've selected. So that's typically how it works, but I could have an operation as an option. In other words, I could have a choice that says, hey, do you want, drill the frame or something like that? And I could say yes, or I could choose that specific operation that says drilling or not drilling, right? Anyway, let's look at this guy again. And then routing is just multiple operations in one shot, and configuration is a sub-configuration. So I didn't show that in building up to configurations on the sales orders, but that allows me to have a multi-level configuration. So in other words, let's say on this mountain bike, maybe the wheels are individually configurable. I can choose different spokes and whether aluminum or not, or whatever. I've got a bunch of different selections there. Well, I can open up a sub-configuration just for the wheel, fill in all those details for the wheel, and that'll roll up into the main configuration. Okay, so we can have those sub-configurations as well. Now, that's basically it, right? It's pretty simple. That's the easiest thing. I come in, I list my option, I list all the choices for that option, and I'm good to go. Now, on those mudguards, we had that thing that was a little unusual. What I saw when I went in is I only had these two choices. So when I did the configuration, it only showed me back or front and back. And based on that selection, I chose front and back. And what it did was it incorporated some additional components. And the way it did that, in this case, is very simple. Over here, this parent choice code, everywhere you see front and back, if I choose that front and back, it includes those additional choices. So when I chose that, I chose this guy here. Oh, sorry, I'm holding on the wrong key. I chose this. So when I chose that front and back, it automatically included additional labor. And in this case, it was 1 hour of additional labor. And it included these two components, right? All automatically. All I did was choose front and back, and it included this in the BOM and the routing. And this child calculation formula here, that can be anything you like. So I just got a constant of 1 there, but I could say, you know what, I want, basically half an hour times the number of bells that I'm using, right? So that's a valid formula, 0.5 times my bell quantity. And that would automatically calculate out the labor or component stuff there. And so in these formulas, we've got a lot of places where you can enter these formulas, and you can do a ton of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring over the screen here to this expression evaluator. This is from our knowledge base. This gives you an idea of all the formulas you can use within the configurator. So there's a lot of, standard math and trig formulas and things like that you can use. If statements, random values. So like a bunch of things like that. So almost anything you can do in Excel, as far as formulas go, you can do within the configurator as well. Okay, and there's lookup functions and things like that that are available if you want. And you can build out pretty complex formulas in that formula box here. Okay, all right. Now, if you want more advanced tools, so remember when when I said, hey, if I choose a specific type of handlebars, I'm not allowed to choose a light, and the other type of handlebar or that same type of handlebars enforced me using a bell as well, right? So how do you set that up? Well, for that, we have the rule builder tool in the system. Again, you could use the sort of interface within Business Central if you prefer to write AL code and things like that to do those rules. You can. There's a full sort of interface for doing that. But the rule builder allows us to configure rules within the configurator to do that work. So in this case, it's pretty simple. It takes a second to get used to it. But this is basically, execute while true, which means as long as each of these values is true, it's going to keep evaluating these things. And this one is, until true, which is, as long as it'll keep going until one of these things is true. So it's kind of like an or. If you want to see what that looks like, this is basically what this rule says. It's saying if the handlebar choice is 1800 and the bell choice is blank or the bell choice, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of what that thing is doing. You get used to this very quickly. And what this does is this is saying, okay, this handlebar choice, that's one of the variables from the configurator. So all the stuff I've set up in the configurator, right? So the like forks here, the quantity of forks, the choice I made for the forks, and the image set, which is how we draw the picture of the item. That's all available, and from that we can say, is it equal to all of these different things? Like if is it in the filter, those types of things. So we can do matching. Like if it starts with 18 or whatever, we can do all that. So in this case, it's saying, hey, if my handlebar choice is 1800, what we're going to do is we're going to hide that light option completely. So we're going to prevent that from even showing up. And then if the bell choice is blank, we're going to tell the user, we're going to yell at them and say, hey, you need a bell, and we're going to force that bell into the thing. And then we're also going to say, hey, if the handlebar quantity, or sorry, if the bell quantity isn't the same as the handlebar quantity times 2, we're going to go ahead and actually set that value there. We're going to set the bell quantity to that specific formula. And again, that formula is all the things that I showed you earlier, where you can have all sorts of formulas and everything to calculate quantities. Like typically that's going to be calculating the area of the material you need, right? Like if I'm building a desk and the trim, we're going to calculate out the trim based on the length or the area of the desk, those sorts of things. So at any rate, that's kind of the things you can do. And this guy down here, this is saying, hey, if the handlebar is 1801 and we don't have a light, we're going to prompt the user and say, hey, do you want to add a light? And if they say yes, we're going to go ahead and put that default light choice in there. Right. So that's the rule builder, and you can build very comprehensive rules within this. Like you can do a ton of stuff, or again, you can use the AL code and the API to do that instead if you prefer. All right. So that's basically how we set these guys up. Very easy. The key is you come in, you set up your options, and then for each option, you set up your choices, and you can have sort of parent-child choices like what's defined here, and that's basically it. On each of these choices, there's quite a bit you can do. We looked at a few things, but if I go in here, this is where you can set up actually how the BOM is built, how the routing is built, whether we want to include this option in the extended text. So that extended text is the text that shows up as comments on the sales lines to give us additional information. And you can have a template here that defines how we want that text to show up. So the default is it just gives you the quantity times the description of the component, but I can come in here and I can build up whatever text string I want using placeholders. Okay? So lots of things you can do there. And I'll also mention on the comments, you can do the same thing there. Maybe you don't want, just a comment on the sales order, like that marketing text on the sales order. Maybe on the routing line, right, for the work instruction. Maybe a cut instruction, like, okay, we chose 15-inch length of tubing or something like that. Well, the cut instruction might tell us to cut it to 15 inches with half an inch on each side or something like that. Well, you can come in and you can create those cut instructions using the variables within the configurator. So I could say cut to, handlebar dot quantity, divided by 2 or whatever it happens to be, right? So that's not exactly right, but I can do things like that to generate instructions that show up on the routing line, on the routing header, sales, all of these different areas to help, when we're producing those particular items. Okay. So anyway, lots you can do there. But the basics are very simple. Options, choices, and you're good to go. And there's a view that you can set this all up if you want to set it up in Excel and just do the edit in Excel or import into Excel. You can import this very easily from an external system. But I will reiterate my warning. If you are using an existing configurator like in Excel or something else, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I'm just going to copy that information into this or any configurator. It takes a lot of upfront effort to get configurators working and to start using them. So you really need to give this a try. We do give a trial version of this, 30 days by default. You can go in there, you can play with it, you can make sure it's going to work for your particular environment, and maybe get an estimate for how much effort it's going to take to set up that configurator before you dive right in and start using it, right? It is important to evaluate that because, again, if you've got an Excel sheet, you've probably got hundreds of hours of effort into getting it to where you want it to be. It's not going to be 2 days to get, that converted over to this configurator. As easy as it is to use and set up, it does take time. One last thing while I'm here. The image stuff, again, there's a few different ways you can do it, but basically you bring in all the different images that you're going to use. What I normally suggest is that every image should be the same size with the thing set up where you want it to be, rather than using this image positioner. But if you do have different images and things like that, even if you have like logos or copyright images, you can put them at the bottom. But this is how you would go ahead and design your images that get built up as you're going through the configurator. Right? So anyway, that's a little bit on how we manage images within the system. All right, so that's basically it. Let's go back here. As far as licensing goes, so you're like, wow, that was awesome. I want it. How do I get it? Well, you can install it off AppSource, of course, and you get the 30-day trial. And again, highly recommended that you do that. You understand how it works. You understand what it's going to take to implement your product types in the configurator, so you get an understanding of the overall effort for doing that implementation. You can get that trial and try it right away. If you decide to license it, it's licensed per company, so there's no user limits whatsoever. So in other words, if you have 20 salespeople that are doing quotes, no problem. There's no individual user license. It's per company, and away you go. And it's pretty low cost. I think it's 10% or less of sort of competing tools out there. It does work with the essential licensing in Business Central, so you don't need manufacturing, like you don't need production orders in there. It'll work with assembly orders and that essential licensing. And as I mentioned earlier, you can use a team member license for doing sales quotes with the configurator. Right, it does allow for that. And finally, on the cost, the fixed price implementation. So what we do there, it's not very much money. I can't remember. It's about a day that we kind of work with you over a week or two or whatever it is. But what we do is we train you on how to set it up, how to use the rule builder, how to use the formulas, how to do these things. And it's up to you to do the configurations yourself. We don't build the configurations for you, right? You don't want us to, because it would get expensive over time. But we will train you up on how to use it and everything else, and then you go ahead and do those configurations. And we will support you. The subscription does include product support, so you can get a hold of us if you have questions, all of those sorts of things. Okay, and you can check with your partner again for the actual pricing. But the company license, I believe, is around $300 a month. And the fixed price is, it's about $1,000 or something, I think, for the fixed price implementation services. Okay, but check with your partner. They'll give you the exact pricing, or contact us if your existing partner is not one of our current resellers. All right. With that, thanks everyone for attending. If you need more information, go ahead, go to our website or go to cpqfordynamics.com. Lots of information there. You can go to our knowledge base where I brought up the list of formulas and things like that. It's got a lot of information there on how to set it up and use it. And again, give it a try and see what you think. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of the week.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more great content and remember to hit that bell icon to stay updated. See you in the next video.